I'm Catherine Hadro. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, showdown on Capitol Hill. How lawmakers are responding as a government shutdown draws closer. Return to the Vatican. Pope Francis is back from his two-day trip to France. We examine his time in the country and his remarks condemning assisted suicide. Pro-life response. How a group of Illinois pregnancy centers are battling a state law forcing them to promote abortion. And it's never too late. The Holy Father has an important message about love and mercy. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. I'm Catherine Hadro in for Tracy Sabol. Our top story tonight, in the nation's capital, negotiations to avoid a government shutdown are making little progress, and House Republicans remain firmly divided. Lawmakers are off until tomorrow, and a shutdown will take place at 12:01 a.m. Saturday, barring any action from Congress. We have team coverage correspondent Owen Jensen will bring us a warning from the White House. But we begin with Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales. He shares how a shutdown could affect you. Eric?
Well, good evening, Catherine. You know, I've spoken to a number of lawmakers, and they're telling their constituents that to brace for a government shutdown. You know, for some Americans, it'll be a few inconveniences, but for others in the federal workforce and even those in the military, they're going to have to continue to work without being paid. Well, this morning, although Congress is closed for the Jewish holiday, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy did make an appearance, and he said that he remains optimistic that a deal can be made.
Well, you have to keep the government open. I mean, if people want to close the government, it only makes them weaker. Why would they want to stop paying the troops or stop paying the border agents or the Coast Guard? I don't understand how that makes you stronger.
House Republicans are still deadlocked among themselves, unable to unify behind a proposal. Those close to the Speaker are pitching a short-term bill with deep cuts to spending, no additional funding for Ukraine, and immigration policy changes. But there's no indication it will be enough for a small group of GOP hardliners who've threatened to vote McCarthy out of his speakership if they don't get their way.
I agree with many of my colleagues who say that if Speaker McCarthy embraces a clean continuing resolution to continue the spending policies of Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, that would most likely trigger a motion to vacate.
Meanwhile, the Problem Solvers Caucus, a bipartisan group of 64 House lawmakers, already have a plan on the table.
You know, we can't afford, and this is a decision the Speaker's going to have to make. He can bring that reasonable bill to the floor that we've proposed, and I guarantee you're going to get Democrats and Republicans coming together to support it, and we can keep the lights on and keep functioning, and I hope that's what happens this week.
President Biden is urging Congress to act.
Funding the government is one of those basic responsibilities of Congress, and it's time for the Republicans to start doing the job America elected them to do.
President Biden's words come as a new ABC News Washington Post poll shows the president's approval rating is now 19 points underwater, with 56% of Americans say they disapprove of the job he's done. 44% of Americans say that they're worse off financially under Biden's presidency, and 66% of Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents say the party should still pick someone else as its nominee in 2024.
Even if House Republicans do come together this week, a continuing resolution to keep the lights on still has to pass the Democratic-controlled Senate. And Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is already allowing the Senate to work on its own CR just in case the House doesn't come up with one. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Eric. The White House is warning what will happen if a government shutdown cannot be avoided. The Biden administration says mothers and young children will be at risk of losing vital nutrition assistance. And today, one member of the president's cabinet went before reporters. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Catherine, the WIC program stands for Women, Infants, and Children. That helps provide families that qualify financially get the nutritional food they need. And today in the White House press briefing room, the Agriculture Secretary made an appearance.
If the government closes its doors, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack worries about what he says will happen to those who receive WIC benefits.
Nearly 7 million pregnant moms, new mothers, and young children count on WIC every single day to receive support.
The USDA says WIC provides families with items like infant cereal, baby foods, iron-fortified adult cereal, fruits and vegetables, vitamin C-rich fruit or vegetable juice, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, and more. So what happens next if there is a shutdown?
The reality is that when there is a shutdown, we're looking at a significant disruption of the lives of millions of Americans.
Meanwhile, leaders from the Pacific Islands meet with President Joe Biden at the White House, taking a family photo on the South Lawn.
President Biden, your message to China as you stand next to these leaders today.
President staying silent, but his administration says it's working to keep the Indo-Pacific free and open to trade.
We're committed to working with all the nations around this table to achieve that goal.
Establishing diplomatic relations, strengthening bonds in the region, and President Biden says building a better world.
One of the great opportunities for security, prosperity, and dignity for all our people, no matter where they live.
And back in the White House press briefing room, the press secretary also telling reporters,
I also wanted to say a note of welcome to our new employees starting at the White House today, our new deputy directors of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention.
Now, that office that the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, referred to there at the end of my report was announced on Friday with the goal of reducing gun violence across the country. Now, tomorrow, President Biden heads to Wayne County, Michigan, to join striking auto workers. The White House says to stand in solidarity with the men and women of the United Auto Workers Union. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Owen. New Jersey Democratic Senator Bob Menendez held a news conference defending himself against federal bribery and corruption charges. He says the nearly $500,000 in a case found in his home was from personal savings.
I firmly believe that when all the facts are presented, not only will I be exonerated, but I still will be the New Jersey's senior senator.
Prosecutors say Senator Menendez and his wife took hundreds of thousands of dollars in payoffs, gold bars, and even a luxury car from 3 businessmen in his state, all to benefit the government of Egypt. Senator Menendez is scheduled to make his first court appearance on Wednesday. Pope Francis is back at the Vatican following his 2-day visit to France. The Holy Father attended the end of the Mediterranean meetings, a gathering of bishops and young people from the region. He also celebrated Mass before tens of thousands of people.
La vita della Chiesa, la Francia, l'Europa hanno bisogno di questo.
At his Mass in Marseille, the Holy Father said those who believe in God and recognize his presence in everyday events leap for joy. Pope Francis also encouraged the faithful to leap toward our neighbor, to help them in times of need. On the papal flight back to Rome, the Holy Father condemned euthanasia and abortion. During a news conference, Pope Francis said assisted suicide and abortion are attempts to, quote, play with life. He added that life, both at its beginning and the end, is not to be played with. Joining us now from Rome is Elias Turk, Vatican editor at Asimena, an Arabic news service provided by EWTN News. Elias, you were in Marseille during Pope Francis's apostolic journey. Why did the Holy Father decide to conclude the Mediterranean meetings himself? Why was it important for him to be in Marseille?
Yes, Catherine, going to Marseille for the Rencontre Méditerranéenne, the Mediterranean encounter was important to the Pope because one of the topics discussed on these meetings was the plight of migrants, which has been a major concern throughout Pope Francis' pontificate. This encounter in Marseille brought together some 140 young people of various creeds with bishops from 30 Mediterranean countries to discuss several topics and challenges these countries are facing. And the migrant crisis was one of the big focal points of discussion. The Holy Father has made several trips throughout his time as Pope to places that are witnessing the arrival of tens of thousands of migrants, such as the Italian island of Lampedusa, Greece, and Malta. So it was important for him to conclude these meetings himself and to be heard again on an issue that is of such pressing concern to the modern world.
That being said, how did Pope Francis address the migrants matter in Marseille? What did he say?
On the papal plane heading to Marseille on Friday afternoon, the Pope used his usual greeting to the journalists on board to stress the importance of the issue of migration, adding to one of the reporters, I hope I will have the courage to say everything I want to say. And in fact, the Pope had the courage, because in a moment of reflection with religious leaders near a memorial dedicated to sailors and migrants lost at sea next to the Basilica of Notre Dame de la Garde in Marseille, he said, "We find ourselves at a crossroads of civilization. On the one hand, there is fraternity, which makes the human community flourish with goodness, and on the other, indifference, which bloodies the Mediterranean." He added, "People who are at risk of drowning when abandoned on the waves must be rescued. It is a duty of humanity. It is a duty of civilization." And in the final session of the Rencontre Méditerranéenne, he declared that amidst today's sea of conflicts, we are here to enhance the contribution of the Mediterranean so that it can return to being a laboratory of peace.
Strong words. Elias, during the papal flight from Marseille to Rome on Saturday, Pope Francis used his meeting with reporters to condemn, I would say strongly condemn, euthanasia and abortion. You were on board the papal flight. What more can you tell us about the Pope's comments?
Yes, the Pope was asked by a French journalist if he had spoken about euthanasia in the private conversation he had with France's President Emmanuel Macron earlier in the day. In fact, the French government is currently preparing to pass a controversial bill on end-of-life issues that could legalize assisted suicide and euthanasia in the country. The Holy Father answered that he did not talk to Macron about it during this meeting, but they talked about it on Macron's last visit to the Vatican. Then the Pope said, "You don't play with life, neither at the beginning nor at the end. It is not played with." And he added, whether it is the law not to let the child grow in the mother's womb or the law of euthanasia in disease and old age, arguing that we should be careful with ideological colonization that ruin human life and go against human life. He explained further that he was not saying it is a faith thing, but it is a human thing.
Elias Turk, Vatican editor at Osimena, thank you for that great insight. Negotiations are ongoing between representatives of Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan. The two sides are discussing Nagorno-Karabakh's final status. The majority Christian territory has been at the center of attention lately following Azerbaijan's attack on Armenian forces in the region. Many ethnic Armenian residents say they are planning to leave and head back to mainland Armenia. China is renewing its claims over disputed waters in the South China Sea.
在未经中方允许的情况下，擅自闯入黄岩岛附近海域。
Beijing is accused of placing a 900-foot barrier to block fishing boats from the Philippines. Philippine officials are vowing to remove the floating structure, calling it, quote, illegal and illegitimate. Iran has unveiled a new long-range cruise missile. It was shown during a parade marking the 43rd anniversary of the war with neighboring Iraq. State media reports did not provide specific details of the weapon. Officials claim it has, quote, the world's greatest range. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly, including pro-life warriors, how a group of pregnancy care centers are advocating for the unborn in Illinois, and making the pledge, how the U.S. plans to aid in the fight against gang violence in Haiti. A lawsuit in Illinois is giving a closer look into a measure concerning to pro-lifers. Senate Bill 1564 would force pro-life doctors and pregnancy centers to promote abortion, even if it goes against their ethical and moral views. A federal injunction has blocked enforcement of the law for 6 years, but now pro-lifers are seeking a permanent halt. Both parties were in court last week. They now await a judge's ruling. One pro-life group taking part in the lawsuit is Mosaic Health. Joining me now is the president and CEO of Mosaic Health, Kathy Lesnoff and her attorney, Kevin Terrio from Alliance Defending Freedom. Thank you both for joining us. Kathy, before I dig into this case with you, you have had such an amazing journey to your current role. Can you explain briefly how you went from being so involved in the pro-abortion movement to being such a strong pro-life warrior today?
Sure thing, Catherine. Years ago, I found myself working in one of the largest abortion facilities in the Midwest. I actually was hired to be a medical assistant to assist the doctors during the abortion procedure. And during that period of time, a lot of things were going wrong in my life, but I became a Christian. I full out just gave my heart to Christ. And shortly after that, I was allowed to see, witness, and assist in an abortion done on a little baby boy that was 23 weeks along in pregnancy. And, you know, God just revealed to me that I was killing babies and that it didn't matter if they were 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or certainly 23 weeks. And so I left that abortion clinic the next day. But for 5 years, I still had a burden for women who would find themselves in an untimely pregnancy. And so God crossed our paths and we began what is now known as Mosaic Health.
Wow, that is incredibly powerful. And Kathy, can you explain how this Illinois state law that we're talking about, how it impacts your work and why you decided to fight this in court?
Sure. Senate Bill 1564 would mandate that we as a limited medical facility would have to refer for abortion and provide our patients the benefits of abortion and also provide it as a treatment option. And because we are a Christ-centered Christian organization, Catherine, we would never do that. So no one should be forced to share a message that violates their deepest convictions. So the board of directors, we just got together and prayed, and we decided we could not adhere to this. We never do abortions. We would never refer for an abortion. And so Alliance Defending Freedom came alongside us and has represented us, and we're very thankful.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, tell us how the case went last week. What were your main arguments, and how do you think the judge received them?
Well, the case went very well from our perspective, and our main argument is that no one, including these pregnancy centers and the pro-life doctors working with them, should be targeted by the government for living according to their religious convictions. And we were able to put on proof. Kathy did a great job of testifying about just how heinous it would be if their pregnancy center would have to approve of and refer for and be complicit in abortion. And then we also had some OBGYNs testify that the standard of care does not require this, and their personal religious convictions prohibit them from being complicit in abortion in this way. So the case went very well from that perspective.
Kevin, in terms of precedent, I know the Supreme Court has weighed in on similar cases. I'm thinking of NIFLA v. Becerra. Can you tell us what those decisions were and how they might impact the judge's decision in this case?
NIFLA versus Becerra is actually an ADF case where we represented NIFLA and were able to get a great Supreme Court ruling that said that pregnancy centers can't be forced to advertise and speak the government's message, pro-abortion message. And so that case really governs here because that's what the state of Illinois is requiring pro-life pregnancy centers and the medical professionals working with them to do. So we're very optimistic and hopeful that that case will control and the judge will rule in our favor and uphold the beliefs and the freedom of these pregnancy centers.
Really important to hearing. Kathy, last word goes to you. Why is this a case that our viewers should care about?
Well, they should care about it because really, for all Americans, we all should be free to live and to work according to our faith, peaceably, without the threat of government punishing us. So really, if we win, we all win.
Kathy and Kevin, thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, helping out Haiti. We look at a recent pledge by the Biden administration. Plus, Pope Francis delves into God's big-hearted love for his children. The United States has pledged an additional $65 million in aid to Haiti. It also is urging the United Nations Security Council to formally back a multinational security mission in the country. According to U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, the money will bolster police along with logistical support to stabilize the country. For years, Haiti has been under siege from extreme poverty, natural disasters, and gang violence. The Caribbean country has been in especially sharp decline since the assassination of its president in July 2021. Here to talk about the situation in Haiti is Stefan Destin, Director General of the Partnership for Church Reconstruction, or PROCH, which is focused on reconstructing Catholic churches in Haiti. Stefan, thanks for joining me today. How bad have things gotten in Haiti, and what is your reaction to this renewed support from the United States?
Thank you for having me. I'd like to talk about how the situation has really gotten bad. Many of these areas, which are in a metropolitan area around the capital, have been affected by the expansion of the gangs area. And those areas have been pushing families and women, kids, and men out of their homes, which they have, struggled to build, and bringing them out in the streets, which have caused a lot of difficulties to the country due to the fact that those people that have been displaced cannot either find a place of shelter to live or even go back to their original city of origin to join their family, due to the fact that the national road that goes down to the number 2 that goes down to the south, and the national road that going down number 1 and number 3 going up north, all these areas and major road has been controlled by gangs. So right now we have facing a critical situation where kidnapping is on a daily basis affecting families and destabilizing the financial institution and causing major issues within the country.
It's important to bring this all to the light. Thank you for that insight. And speaking about the U.S. support for Haiti, the money is one thing, but people have given money to Haiti before just for it to be wasted by corruption, for example. So, Stefan, can you speak to how critical is it that this multinational group get the security mission correct and help to stand up the police and good actors in the country?
In the past, there have been a lot of aid released to the country. There have been also a lot of interventions from the U.S. Army and also from the United Nations. A lot of them have missed their target. A lot of them have missed their objectives. I think right now it's very important that this mission or whatever aid, aid that would come from the United Nations or from any other country really targets the key issues and the key problems that Haiti is facing. Because right now the money is very important. These are things that will resolve some key issues, getting resources for the police and being able to control the gangs from expanding their particular area. But right now, the funding that have been identified, those are not I would say key things that would address the major issues, which is the gun supply and the gun ammunition coming into the country and coming to the gangs. So it will help the police with the resources and some intelligent resources also to maintain and control and push back a little bit on the gangs. But we definitely need more to address the gang issues, which is pretty much like the gun supplies and the ammunition, and also the local sponsors that are helping those gangs get those guns.
Stefan, we only have about 30 seconds left. As we wrap up, what is the feeling in Haiti? Are people optimistic that real change can be delivered, or is it a wait-and-see approach?
I think it's a little bit of both. Some people are in a little bit of wait and see. Others that really understand what's going on and have a vision of where the country needs to go also have some optimistic point of view right now. Because the idea of Haiti is not something that can be resolved with a quick change. There needs to be some key elements that are on the table to address the short terms, which is the insecurity and the problems that we have with the local government and the opposition leaders not being able to get along, and the long-term solutions, which are education, agriculture, environment, and then creating an environment to create jobs for the country and explore also our natural resources so that we can deal with other countries.
A lot more work to be done. Stefan, thank you for your time and insight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Finally, tonight, Pope Francis reminds the faithful it's never too late to receive God's love.
Non si arrende se tardiamo a rispondergli.
At his Sunday address at the Vatican, the Holy Father says God's love transcends human understanding, and everyone is able to feel his boundless mercy. Pope Francis adds that the Lord searches for us and is always ready for us to turn back to him. An important reminder for us all. We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Catherine Hadro. Good night and God bless.